It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices, the place where we don't just talk about the hard stuff, we drag it into the light, shake it up, and reclaim our power. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this hive, your feminist life coach and psychotherapist, and today we are diving into something that's often swept under the rug: complicated grief. Let me be real with you. Grief is messy. But when you're grieving someone with whom you had a complicated, strained, or even painful relationship, the mess becomes even more tangled. Society does not like to talk about this kind of grief. It expects a neat little script. You lose someone, you cry, you move on. But for many of us, especially women who have spent our lives holding space for others, caretaking, or navigating toxic dynamics, grief just does not follow the rules. So today, we are unpacking complicated grief, what it is, why it's valid, and how to begin healing when your emotions feel like a storm that does not know which way to spin. Okay, before we jump in, I just have to give a shout out to my listener in Madison, Wisconsin, who sent me some fan mail. I want you to know I can't respond to the fan mail, I can't text back, but I want you to know I was very touched. This is, again, my nurse from Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Queen. You made my entire day. And things have been a little complicated in my life lately, which I might talk about a little bit in the episode. But when I received your message about how this podcast has helped you, let me tell you, you validated what I'm doing. And so thank you, Madison, Wisconsin. Keep listening. I hope I continue to put out content that is helpful for you and that you can apply to your life. Okay. Jumping back into complicated grief. All right. So full disclosure, this episode is going to be difficult for me to do. And so, of course, I'm pushing myself to do it. I lost someone last week, and I'm not healed from it, not even close. But in addition to losing a family member, I'm also dealing with another family crisis in my life with somebody who I am going to have incredibly complicated grief over when he passes. So I knew I wanted to do an episode on grief, but I didn't want to sit here and cry into a microphone about my own loss. And so I wanted to, of course, pick a topic around grief that I think will be helpful for my listeners, because, I mean, we all know regular grief, right? It sucks. It just sucks. We lose someone, we can't do anything about it, and we're going to cry about it until we're done crying about it, and then we're going to cry about it again. And that's, pretty much the cycle. There's stages of grief. I'm not going to go into that. That's for another episode if we need more education on that. But I wanted to talk about the complicated grief piece for a couple reasons. First, I will be able to get through an episode without crying because I'm not dealing with that today, as I am my other grief. But second, it's just something that is not talked about. So let's jump into it. And I'm going to get a little clinical for a second. So complicated grief can develop into what's known as prolonged grief disorder. And this is when the grieving process becomes chronic, intense, and very disruptive to your life. Unlike typical grief that gradually softens over time, prolonged grief can feel like being emotionally stuck. You might experience persistent yearning, deep guilt, unresolved anger, emotional numbness, or even physical symptoms like fatigue or difficulty concentrating that linger for months or even years. And when your relationship with the person who died was tangled up in abuse, neglect, estrangement, betrayal, or even just unresolved conflict, these feelings don't just intensify, they fracture. You're left with an emotional puzzle that does not have a clear picture or final piece. It's grief compounded by confusion, regret, and unanswered questions. It's mourning the death and mourning the relationship that never got to be what you needed it to be. And some of you might remember from a prior episode, last year, I lost someone and it was very complicated grief. It was someone who I had a very, very nasty relationship with. And so when he passed, my grief was that we never got to have a relationship, a healthy relationship. He never got to see me for who I am. He only looked at me through his own messed up lens. And it was just like, I'll be very honest, when I cried tears at his funeral, it shocked me. And I recognized that I wasn't grieving the loss of him for who he was. I was grieving the loss of the relationship that never was. And I actually believe that I will experience this again when a very significant male in my life passes. So, when you go through this, you might be thinking some of the same things that I thought, like, I didn't even like them. Why am I still crying? Or I thought I was over this, but now I feel like I can't breathe. And you know what? That is so confusing, and it can feel like emotional whiplash. But let me say it loud and clear. Your feelings are valid. That is valid. That is real. And it does not make you weak. It makes you deeply, beautifully human. You are reacting not just to the loss of a person, but to the storm of unresolved emotions, unmet needs, and unspoken words they left behind. Your tears are not just for who they were, but for what you endured, what you hoped for, and what will now never be. Thought I wasn't going to cry, but here I am. But you know what, ladies? That is not weakness. That's evidence of your capacity to feel fully, to hurt deeply, and to heal honestly. Because here's the thing. Grief isn't just about losing someone you loved. It's also about mourning the absence of closure, the silence where apologies should have lived, and the space where hope quietly died. It's grieving the possibilities that never came to life, the fantasy of reconciliation, the dream of mutual understanding, or just one moment of real accountability. It's grieving the version of them that you wished could have become if they had healed, grown, or truly seen you. And it's grieving the version of you that you twisted yourself into trying to earn love, trying to prove your worth, or make it work in a relationship that was never built to hold you safely. And let's talk about for a minute why this hits women so hard. Women are often conditioned to be emotional caregivers from a very young age. We're handed this silent script. Be nice, Don't make waves, forgive easily, and hold everything together for everyone else. We are taught to forgive, even when there's been no apology. We are encouraged to smooth things over, to keep the peace, even if that peace costs us our sanity. We are pushed to stay connected, to maintain relationships that drain us, to keep showing up even when it chips away at our very spirit. So when someone dies, especially someone we had a complicated or painful relationship with, the world does not give us space to sit with the truth. Instead, we're often bombarded with messages like, you should just focus on the good, or let the past go. Many women feel pressure to rewrite history, to soften the sharp edges of what really happened, to grieve in a way that makes others comfortable. But I'm sorry, complicated grief is not about comfort. It is about truth. And your truth matters, even if it's messy, even if it's inconvenient, even if it doesn't come wrapped in a tidy, tearful eulogy. You might even hear people say, don't speak ill of the dead, or they did the best they could. And sure, maybe they did. Maybe they did the best they could with what they had, right? But here's the thing. Doing your best does not mean you did not hurt people. And sometimes their best wasn't good enough. Sometimes their actions left deep scars, even if they were struggling too. Maybe they caused harm. Maybe they manipulated you, dismissed your pain, or were just never emotionally safe. And now they're gone. And you're left with a chaotic swirl of memories that don't fit neatly into grief or closure. That's the part that no one tells you about. That you can still grieve while also acknowledging what they did or did not do. And you get to honor your truth, not the polished, Instagrammable version, the raw one. You get to process your loss without erasing your pain. Grief and truth can coexist, and honoring both is an act of radical self-respect. All right, now that we've called it what it is, let's talk about what the hell to do with it. As always, I've got some actionable steps for healing. Step number 1, name it without shame. Say it out loud. My relationship with them was complicated. Let the words land. Let them be messy and real and unfiltered. That, my ladies, is a powerful first step. Not just because it fixes anything, but because it creates space for honesty. This isn't about blaming or justifying. It is about naming. You don't owe anyone a sanitized version of your truth, least of all when it comes to your own healing. In a world that often wants us to grieve quietly, politely, and preferably in private, claiming your narrative is an act of rebellion. Say it again if you need to. Write it down. Own it fully. Your grief gets to be yours and no one else's. Step number 2, write the unsent letter. Write to them. Pour it all out. Every word you swallowed, every moment you wanted to scream, every ounce of confusion, anger, sorrow, and even love. Say all the things you couldn't when they were alive. Curse if you need to. Cry if it comes. Plead, thank, rage, reflect. Grieve not just what happened, but what didn't. The conversations you never had. the apologies you never got, the healing that never came. Then, when you're done, choose what feels most powerful. Burn it and watch the smoke carry away your pain. Bury it like a ritual of closure. Or keep it as a sacred testament to your truth. This is not about forgiveness or reconciliation. This is about release. This is for you, not for them. It's your healing, your voice, and your moment to be fully heard, even if only by yourself. When I did this, it was incredibly powerful for me, and it helped to move me forward. So I really encourage you, try this. It may sound silly, but try it. Because like I said, it was so incredibly healing for me, and I want that same for you. Step number 3, reclaim your narrative. Society will try to shove you into a grief mold that does not fit. It'll tell you to keep quiet, to be graceful, to focus on the good times. But complicated grief demands much more than that. It demands honesty. So speak your story, even if your voice shakes. Shout it in therapy. Whisper it into your journal. Share it with a friend who gets it. Let it live outside your body so it doesn't keep gnawing at you from the inside. Your experience deserves to be seen and validated. And every time you name what happened without sugarcoating, without softening the edges, you reclaim your power. You become the narrator of your own story, not a background character in someone else's legacy. Complicated grief is still grief. In your truth, it is sacred. Step number 4, make room for duality. My friends, you can feel anger and sadness, relief and regret, love and resentment. We are not made for one-dimensional emotions, and grief does not ask for clean lines or emotional loyalty to one feeling at a time. This isn't about picking a side. It's about allowing the full spectrum of your humanity to show up. And you might feel devastated one minute and weirdly liberated the next. That does not make you heartless. It makes you whole. Because duality is not a flaw. It's emotional intelligence in action. It's where healing lives. Let yourself hold all of it. The tension, the contradictions, the messy beauty of feeling deeply in multiple directions. That is not weakness. That is truth. And lastly, step number 5, seek support that gets it. Not every therapist or support group will understand complicated grief, and that can be re-traumatizing. You do not need someone who tells you to focus on the positive or asks you to bypass your pain for the sake of closure. You need someone who's trauma-informed, feminist-aligned, and knows how to hold space for your full story without flinching. You know, someone like me. Look for healers, coaches, therapists, support groups, or communities where your truth will be honored, not sanitized. If you feel unseen or judged in your current support system, give yourself full permission to walk away and find better. Healing requires safe space. You deserve care that meets you where you are, not where others think you should be. So again, I will say this. If you are having a hard time finding that space, reach out to me. I am here. I am that safe space. I do not judge. I teach. I listen. I hold compassion for you. I meet you exactly where you're at. Because you know what? I've been there, and I've had all the shitty shit done to me. I've had the very unhelpful and quite honestly, devastatingly hurtful words said to me. So I get it. And I will not be that person to someone else. I will never minimize someone else's pain, ever. All right. Let's anchor this heavy subject in something beautiful. I've got a quote from an unknown author that really resonates with me. And this person says, "You are not obligated to make peace with someone who refused to make peace with you, even in death." My queens, let that sit in your bones for a second. I'm not even going to expand on that one. Just let it sit. And then let yourself heal. You know, ladies, grieving someone that you had a hard relationship with is not just allowed, it's necessary. Because you deserve the healing that honors your full truth, not just the parts that make others comfortable. So, if this episode spoke to you, share it with a friend who needs to hear that her grief is valid too. And if you're looking for a space where you can unpack this kind of stuff with support, head over to our private Facebook group for the Hint Hive podcast. You don't have to do this alone. And let me tell you, I have been absent from the Hint Hive Facebook group for a bit. Like I said, I've had a lot of things happening since the beginning of May. My life has kind of imploded a little bit with family crisis after family crisis. And the ladies of the Hint Hive group have been fabulous, making up for my absence. I'm telling you, they are a wonderful group of women who will support you. You can throw something out into the group, throw a question into the group. You'll get an answer. There are other queens in there who want to support you just as much as I do. So please come on over. It wouldn't hurt to hear from more than just me, right? So, ladies, until next time, keep breaking those rules that don't serve you. Keep speaking truths that feel heavy, and keep amplifying your own damn voice. Be the queen that you are. I love you all. Stay bold, stay healing, and stay loud. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.